Welcome to another episode of Flick and the Bozman. Already with some technical difficulties, but we're fighting through it. Are you there, Boz?
I am here. I'm just kidding around. Yes, doing good. Ready to roll.
Ready to roll, and you have only a limited idea of what the heck we're doing tonight.
I always have a limited idea. That's fine.
All right. Well, it came up with one of our emailers, and yes, we have emailers. We have, I can't say double digit, but we have some emailers. And the concept of what was the best Game 7 ever came up. And everyone's been doing brackets recently, and we even did it with the bracket of pain and the bracket of joy. And so, why not the bracket of best Game 7s? So that's what we're going to attempt to do.
Feels like it needs a better name than that, like the Lucky Sevens or the Super Sevens.
A lot of good, here's what I noticed: a lot of good names were taken. So, but if you did it all as one word, best Game 7 bracket, that seemed to be available. It's no longer available because we took it. That is now us.
I think you just go with the Costanza. You just call it 7.
Just 7. Just 7. Just T-Bone. We'll go with T-Bone.
T-Bone.
We'll go with that. Now, when you have a best Game 7 bracket, it's quite complicated. And the person who originally suggested this to us said, you should include Super Bowls too. And I'm like, no. Super Bowls are exciting in their own right, but they're not Game 7s. And when we get into games from the 1920s and 30s and hockey games, which were best of 9 at the time, I had to limit it somehow to make it a reasonable size bracket. And originally I thought, I'm going to limit this to 32. But I'll admit, 32 spaces was not quite enough. So here's what we've settled on. We being, well, mostly me because I'm lazy, but here's what we're down to. We are going to make a bracket eventually of 32 games. We are right now at the play-in stage. And here's what we have in those 32 spots. We have the top 8 hockey Game 7s from 1960 and forward, the top 8 basketball Game 7s from 1960 and forward, the top 8 World Series Game 7s from 1960 and forward, and then we have tonight's play-in games, which include 8 League Championship Series Game 7s and 8 World Series Game 7s that didn't quite merit a spot in the main draw. So these are play-in games.
Got it. Easy enough. And I think you could argue that we did include all the NFL Game 7s that there have been.
Yes. We didn't include Super Bowl 7, but yes, whenever the NFL had a best of 7, that was included.
Well, Super Bowl 7 was quickly eliminated. That was wasn't that the Dallas game where 14 to 10 or something?
Apparently, I saw a little of the schedule release last night, and apparently the Jets and Dolphins played twice in a row. So that's a bit of a series in itself. There is an off week in between, but I don't know if I ever remember 2 teams playing each other back to back in the NFL, but
not in the regular season. You see it occasionally when someone ends the season and then they play in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, we were talking about one of those where I thought the Oilers in Cleveland had one of those, but I guess I was wrong. But I know it's happened. So tonight you have a job to do.
I'm ready.
You are going to give your vote on 8 matchups. These 8 matchups are Game 7s of particular league championship series, and they're all taking on a Game 7 of a particular World Series. And we'll explain that in a bit, but I didn't think you deserved 100% of the vote. Not because of anything you did, but you had 100% of the vote in the bracket of joy. And I had 100% of the vote in the bracket of pain. So my first thought was, well, we'll each get a vote, and that'll be 50% each, and that'll result in a lot of ties, and that won't help anybody. So I called on a panel of experts, and they all have their own percentage of the votes. I won't reveal each individual percentage who got what, but I will tell you that your vote is worth 22%, as is mine. The experts, who include Paul Ingray, who that name may sound familiar to you, Eric Martin, another name that probably sounds familiar to you, Tim Grasso, who was picked winners for all 8 matchups in under 8 minutes, so he gave it a lot of thought and a lot of investigation, but he contributed, and our guest from show 3 contributed as well. So we have a lot of experts on the panel, and then we also included emailers with their opinions. So
All right.
a star-studded staff giving their opinions on these games.
I like
that was Kevin Hall, our guest, of course, on episode 3.
Now, my question to you, Phil, is there? It seems like you didn't work quite hard enough to make this complicated.
No, this is. I could work harder. We have some coin flips involved. There will be some survivor-like challenges, obstacle courses.
Rock, scissors, paper. We can do that over the internet.
Yes, absolutely. Although I refuse to play unless people put it in alphabetical order of paper, rock, scissors. So that's usually my downfall with that game.
I always go with the Bart Simpson, can't beat the rock.
Good old rock, can't beat the rock. So your job tonight is you're going to contribute your vote to the 8 matchups I have lined up. And in some cases, your vote is going to make the difference. In a couple cases, it may not, but we can jump right into it. And really all you're doing is, in your opinion, the better Game 7. Now, what's that mean, better Game 7? Just that game, better series, more dramatic, a bigger upset, surprising, lead changes. All that is up to you. I say the matchup, you say which one you prefer, and in some cases that will decide which game goes into the main draw of 32 famous Game 7s.
Let's get it.
Does that make any sense at all to you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. So right off the bat, the first one that came up happens to involve our favorite baseball team. And these are all baseball. When we get into the main draw, we're going to mix in some hockey and some basketball. But it's all baseball tonight. And our first matchup, one of our favorite teams, the 86 Mets, they played a Game 7. And they played it against the Red Sox in the World Series, and they won that Game 7. And that particular game goes up against the 2003 American League Championship Series Game 7, which was a Yankee win in 11 innings over the Red Sox, 6-5.
Boy, that's not a good day to be a Red Sox fan.
No. They're in the main draw. There are some better Red Sox results, but in these playing games, the Red Sox did not fare too well.
Yeah. I got you with the trivia earlier today that I had stumbled upon, which I can ask the audience if they want to participate in. What Met got the last RBI in the 86 World Series? That is the question. We can leave it unanswered. Anybody wants to take a shot at it, go for it.
You can even email us.
You could email us if you
like. flickboz@gmail.com.
When you look at the 03 series, this is the infamous Aaron F. and Boone series. And we got these guys. I forget what they were saying. And then who's your daddy, right? That was the thing.
Yes.
Who's your daddy? Grady Little fails to take out Pedro. He gives up the big hit, and ties up the game. And in was it the seventh or eighth inning? Eighth inning, left him in. He had been pitching well. Um, and Bernie gets a single, Posada gets a double, leaves him in, and then Pedro gives up another double. I guess that was to Posada, sorry, and then the infamous Aaron Boone walk off Wakefield in the 11th. Now, if you try to put on a neutral hat here, and I'm not a big Yankee fan to say the least. If you try to put on a neutral hat here, that's a lot of drama. That is a lot of drama in one game. Hard to beat that. Game 7, back and forth series. The Red Sox have been, as we just talked about, had their hearts broken for years. Much unlike the Cubs, who never came close. The Sox came close a bunch of times in the playoffs and in the World Series, only to come up short again and again and again. And the "Who's Your Daddy" stuff. That's you can call them villains, you can call them the evil empire, whatever, but that's great theater right there, right? So I don't know. What are you want to opine on this one, or should we go to the '86 series and then bounce back?
Well, I've voted already, so the only vote remaining is yours.
All right.
And I will tell you this much: your vote will decide it.
If you want to pitch in, because it does. This is definitely interesting games on both sides here.
Yeah, I mean, game 7, Red Sox jumped out to the lead over the Mets, but really in the end, the Mets won it sort of comfortably. I'd say for drama, extra innings, tradition of the Red Sox Yankees matchup, I will tell you, I voted for the League Championship Series as the better game 7.
Yeah, I think that would probably be how I would vote too. I remember watching this game. Actually, I was at the Giants Redskins a Monday night game during Game 7 of the Mets game, and it was funny to look down the row of seats at the Giants game, and everybody there. This is 1986. Everybody there had a portable TV, and the Giants and the Redskins would be in the huddle, and a huge roar would go from the crowd because the Mets had just scored, and the Giants looking around like, what the heck's going on? But you're right. I mean, it wasn't a great. The Mets comeback in the 7th and 8th inning was huge. 6th and 7th inning rather, and that was pretty dramatic. But it was the 6th and 7th inning. You go, the 03 series and the Yankees and Red Sox, huge comeback in the 8th inning, and then it goes to extras. And the walk-off home run, it's hard to beat that. So we got a lot of work to do. I'm gonna leave it there. I'll pick the Yankees over the Yankees Red Sox series over the '86 Mets.
Well, you picking the Yankees and Red Sox series lets that one move into the main draw with a win of 70-30. The email voters did pull for the Mets, as did Kevin, but not enough, as the majority of the votes and the majority of the percentages advance the Red Sox Yankee game. So, matchup 2 here, we have another League Championship Series Game 7 against another World Series Game 7. And we have the 1992 League Championship Series, where the Braves were able to edge the Pirates 3-2. And we have the World Series from 1987, where the Twins beat the Cardinals 4-2 in Game 7.
Sorry, which was the World Series here? I was looking for the
World Series was Twins Cardinals in 87.
87. Okay, Frank Viola and
right. The other Twin Cardinal matchups may appear in the main draw.
Yeah. Joe McGrain, I think, is the losing pitcher on the Cardinal side. So, I mean, let's talk about the World Series first. the Cardinals jumped out to the early lead. The Twins kind of hammered away at it with a run in each of the second, fifth, sixth, and eighth innings to win the series 4-2. It's World Series. It's Game 7. To me, there's not a lot of drama there. I mean, they tied it up in the fifth. They took the lead in the sixth, and they got an insurance run. Okay, not a lot to say there. I mean, Viola pitched well. Reardon got the save. On you go. The 92 playoff series, NLCS series. Wow. And this is the game in and of itself was dramatic, right? But then you look at Pittsburgh took the lead 1-0 in the top of the first. They got a second run in the sixth, and then the huge Atlanta rally. Pendleton with a double. Justice reached on an error. Sid Bream with a walk to load the bases. Gant with a sac fly. Berryhill walks again to load the bases. A pop-up, so 2 outs, bases loaded, and it's a tie game at this point. And then Francisco Cabrera, the single left, and the short left. Barry Bonds playing left field, and the one guy in Major League history that's not a catcher and not a pregnant woman that could give you a run for your money in a foot race. Sid Bream.
Thank you.
Sid Bream slides under the tag. Mike LaValliere, right, as the catcher. And that was the last time the Pirates were truly competitive. Great team, that Pirates team, right, with Bonds and Bonilla, Van Slyke. Doug Drabeck lost his third game of the series in that game. And just an awesome team. They deserve better, you would think. But they, and then they ended up breaking up the team pretty much right after that, right? Bonds left. Van Slyke ended up going to the Cardinals, I think, after that. Bonilla ended up coming to the Mets a year or two later.
A much smaller Barry Bonds than.
Yeah, that was peculiar. Interesting point. But look at the team. Look at the guys on the team: Pendleton, Justice, Gant. That Braves team was a really good team, and that was the start of their run of excellence that lasted until the early part of the 21st century. I definitely, that to me, for drama, that's gonna be a hard one to beat.
It was a hard one to beat, and I will get rid of the suspense and tell you that game's moving on, no matter how you officially voted, because even without you voting, it already had 58% and was going to move on. But I'll throw your 22% of the vote, 22 points of the vote, and it's going to get an 80-20 win over the Twins Cardinals series. So far, 2 LCSs have defeated 2 World Series for drama and being the better game 7. The 8 other baseball series that are in this main tournament are all World Series, but I wanted to give the League Championship Series a chance, and so far they're taking advantage of that as they've won the first 2 matchups.
Very interesting. All right.
Now, the third matchup, you will decide it. One of these series is right there, but they don't quite have the point value to win it. So it's going to be up to you. And the League Championship Series is a bit of a painful one.
Uh-oh. I know which one you mean already.
2006, the Cardinals won the game by a score of 3-1 over the Mets. And in 2011, the Cardinals were successful once again, but in the World Series, defeating the Rangers by a score of 6-2.
Interesting. Wow. So the 11 series, to me, that series really, the drama was in Game 6. When the Rangers manager, whose name is escaping me at the moment, failed to make the right pitching moves and blew the series. But Game 7 was not a bad game. Yeah, Chris Carpenter, Matt Harrison, uh, Cardinals jumped out the Rangers rather jumped out to the early lead in the first. Cardinals tied it up in the bottom of the first. But from there, the drama was pretty much over. The Cardinals got one in the third, two in the fifth, one in the seventh, and that was that. It was a very exciting series.
And you can factor that in. The series as a whole can be a factor. It's really anything you want.
And Game 6, you had that back and forth drama. Rangers scored one in the first. Cardinals got two in the second. Rangers tied it up. They traded runs in the fourth. Rangers took the lead in the fifth. The Cardinals got it back in the sixth. Rangers got three in the seventh. Cardinals got one in the eighth and then two in the bottom of the ninth. They both put up two in the 10th. And then the Cardinals got one in the 11th to win it 10-9. There were 5 errors in the game, whatever that's worth. That was just an epic game. And it felt like one of those classic Game 6s that seemed to dictate the way the series is going to go. But then you compare that with the 06 Mets and Cardinals, another great series. And that game featured, one of my favorite plays in the history of the Mets, with Endy Chavez leaping up over the fence in front of the AIG sign.
I got that one right. In trivia time.
Drank trivia there. And taking the home run away from Scott Rowland, getting the double play as well with Edmonds. And then in the top of the ninth, right? It was the top of the ninth. They got the 2-run home run off Heilman. Was it Yadier Molina, right? And that, so it was 1-1 after 2, and it stayed that way until the top of the ninth.
That's some Game 7 drama.
There was Oliver Perez pitching great for the Mets, and Jeff Suppan, who I believe was in the Pedro Martinez trade when the Expos traded him away to the Red Sox. But don't quote me on that. Pitched very well for the Cardinals in that game as well. Adam Wainwright, who went on to become a great starter, got the save in relief. I think for drama, for the games themselves, the Mets have the Mets Cardinals has more drama. If you factor in the series, that that Rangers Cardinals series was fantastic, and it is a World Series. That is a tough game. I can see why that's such a close vote. I think I'm going to vote for the NLCS again over the World Series.
You have given that the victory. Before your vote came in, it was 44-34 with the LCS winning, and you have pushed that over the top. So they end up with 66 points to the World Series having 34. And LCSs are now 3-0 against World Series.
How about that?
That's a irrelevant stat, but we throw it out there anyway. And the Cardinals won both of those series, coincidentally, that happened to come up against each other in the vote. And we don't quite get rid of St. Louis yet, because in matchup number 4, they're involved in the LCS once again. And another one they were victorious in, beating the Astros. Yes, the Astros in the National League Championship Series in 2004, and the Cardinals beat them 5-2 in that game. And then we go way back. These votes, I think I mentioned at one point, this from 1960 and forward, but we're going way back to the World Series in 1965, where the Dodgers were able to win a game 7 against the Twins by a score of 2-0.
Wow, what a matchup. So, in terms of drama, the NLCS in that series did not have a ton of drama, right? I mean, the Astros took the lead early. The Cardinals came back. So the Astros took a 2-run lead, right, by the top of the third. The Cardinals got one in the bottom of the third, three in the sixth, and one in the eighth, and that was that. What was interesting about that series as I was looking at it is the names in it. You know, you had Biggio and Bagwell and Clemens and Beltran, Pujols and Larry. There's 5 guys there that are Hall of Famers, plus Clemens, Jim Edmonds, Scott Rowland, and Jeff Kent, who are borderline Hall of Famers in one way or another. Clemens being borderline for a different reason than the other ones. That's a lot of talent there. So that in and of itself is fascinating, and puts a little bit of drama there. On the flip side, the 65 World Series was notable because it was Koufax, and I think that was the year that he had the famous decision not to pitch on Yom Kippur. So he pitched in Game 2 and Game 5, and then came back on 2 days rest to pitch Game 7.
He did go 2-1 in the series, yes.
He lost Game 2, but he pitched complete game shutouts in Games 5 and 7, with a combined 7 hits and 20 strikeouts.
That'll work.
That gets it done. So I think, in terms of drama, in terms of importance and sort of notoriety, I'm going to go with the 65 World Series on that one.
And the losing pitcher was?
The losing pitcher, I do have that in.
No, I got it right here. I just want to see if you can pull it out of your brain.
The losing pitcher for the Twins, I do not have it.
It was Jim Cott.
Jim Cott. I did not. But I did.
Jim Cott gave up 2 runs in the fourth, and that was the only scoring in the game. As Dave mentioned, that was a 2-0 final, or I think you mentioned it was a shutout, and that was it, 2-0. And just to fill the listeners in who are still scrambling to figure out the 2011 manager of the Rangers, that was, of course, Ron Washington. So yes. that name even more forgettable than Jim Cott. But this is the first World Series matchup to win one of these. And I will tell you, I did not tell you if your vote mattered, but your vote was huge here, as the World Series was sitting on 49 points. So they did not quite have it sealed. And your 22 may have done it for the League Championship Series, but that would have made a 51-49 point distribution. But with you going for the World Series, they win. It looks easy, but it wasn't. But they win by a count of 71-29, and that 65 World Series moves on.
All right.
And that brings us to our 5th of 8 matchups tonight. Again, if you're just hit your YouTube somehow, fast forwarded about 28 minutes, we are doing 8 play-in games for the main draw of our best game 7 since 1960 bracket. Ultimately, these 32 games in the bracket will be 8 game 7s in the NHL, 8 game 7s in the NBA, and 16 game 7s in Major League Baseball. Some World Series and some League Championship Series. And we have another potential for a League Championship Series to move on here, because the series from 2003, the Marlins defeating the Cubs, is taking on the 1972 World Series of the A's against the Reds. Take it away, Bozman.
Wow. All right. Well, from the Bozman, the 03 Cubs and Marlins, of course, is the Bartman series.
Yes, it is.
That was Game 6, and that was a Cubs team that had no business losing that series, with Kerry Wood and Mark Pryor and the talent that was on that team. Now, not to say that with the Marlins, they ended up beating the Yankees in the World Series, so clearly there was some talent there. But boy, those is some great young pitchers. It was Dusty Baker, right? He just burned through those guys. And I'm not sure that either one of them was ever really the same after that season. Uh, that was game 6 though, and that was the game the Cubs were up 3-0. Was the 8th inning, I think, and the Bartman thing, and then the Marlins scored 8 runs in the inning, and go on to win that, and then go on to win the next one. So in game 7, it was a little bit of a back and forth thing. 9-6 was your final. Miguel Cabrera hits a 3-run homer in the first. Kerry Wood comes back with a home run in the bottom of the second to tie, and they end up tying the game to 3-3. That was a 2-run homer. Moise Alou got a 2-run homer to give them the lead, and then the Marlins, the Cubs that is, and the Marlins go to town after that and pulled away with Ivan Rodriguez, and Miggy get another big hit, and then Derek P get another hit, and on they went. So a lot of drama there, a lot of drama in the series, especially with the Cubs having gone close to, at that point, 100 years since the last time they had won a World Series. One of the few times, as I alluded to earlier, that they actually came close to winning a National League pennant. That would have been their first one since 1945, the year that we dropped the bomb on Japan. That's one of my favorite song lyrics. The last request, the Dying Cubs fan, if you're wondering. And on the other side, it is the A's and the Reds. Now, this is a battle between two teams that would be kind of dynasties in the 70s. The A's were winners of 3 straight World Series, and this was the beginning of the Big Red Machine. So the A's win in 72, they won again in 73, and again in 74. Yeah, 74. And the Reds would come back again to win in 75 and in 76.
We may be hearing from a couple of those games later on in the brackets.
I would think so.
Not tonight, but in the main draw.
So as awesome as that is, and you know, in this game, I think it was Catfish Hunter, right? That was the winning pitcher, and Rolly Fingers the save. So a lot of talent here. You had Reggie Jackson, right on the team. Matty Alou, Burkamp Nelson. Reggie was not in the lineup. Maybe I'm thinking he came. Something's amiss there. He wasn't in the lineup for the A's. To look into that. Didn't notice that before now. A lot of talent there, and then the Reds, of course, you have Pete Rose, Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench, Tony Perez. There's some talent there.
Yeah, on both teams, yes.
Yeah.
This is the team the Mets knocked off the Reds on their way to their second World Series. Not a World Series win, but their second appearance.
Yeah, the amazing Mets in '73. So unfortunately, again, with this game and a little bit with the Bartman series, not a lot of drama in this game 7. I mean, the A's take the lead, the Reds tie it up, and then Gene Tennis and Sal Bando get a couple of runs across in the top of the 6th, and make it a 3-1 game. Tony Perez gets an RBI single in the bottom of the 8th to make it close, but that was it. So it wasn't like a walk-off hit or anything like that. Great home runs. There's a sac fly here, an RBI double. I guess back-to-back doubles in the 6th to take the lead for the A's. I think in terms of drama, in terms of overall quality of the teams and so forth, I'm going to go with the A's and Reds series over the Bartman series. As epic as that Bartman thing, if that had happened in Game 7, that's a hands down winner. Game 6, it doesn't enter in the equation. It enters an equation, but not directly.
I think here it goes with: are you going with the quality game or the crazy dramatic game? And I fully understand why you're going with the quality game and the World Series and 2 great teams. However, for the first time tonight, your 22% was not enough, as the LCS already had 58 points and will move on. So
I,
the
I, I don't dispute that. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and for those of you that are participating on the panel, no 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 argument for me that this game didn't deserve to go ahead. But I obviously did pick the other one.
Yeah, we're seeing a little recency biased, I think, in some of the panel and some of the votes. But that I will say, I voted for the LCS here just because that was such a crazy, memorable game, and I took that over quality, and apparently so did our emailers, and so did our expert panel. So the LCSs are now 4 out of 5 over the World Series, at least in our voting to see what should be in the main bracket of the best game sevens.
And an interesting little footnote that an Alu was in both games,
Yes, both these games
both
had
series.
yes, very good. We have a matchup here where I will take the suspense out and tell you that your vote will decide it. So
Okay.
put some pressure on you here. The LCS is from 1985, where the Royals got the best of the Blue Jays by a 6-2 score, and the World Series. Talk about quality was the Tigers beating the Cardinals, who have had a good night tonight in the matchups as a whole, but the Tigers winning the 1968 World Series over the Cards, 4-1 in Game 7.
So starting with the World Series, I mean, Bob Gibson got the loss, and Mickey Lolich got the win. Complete game is his third complete game victory of the series, um, which is amazing. Um, the score was 4-1. You know, the Tigers. It was uh, a very low scoring affair for the first 6 innings. I think it was 0-0. The Tigers got 3 in the top of the seventh off Gibson. Of course, Gibson, I think, got the complete game in the loss, which obviously would never happen today. Uh, and then Lolich gave up a run in the ninth to make it 4-1, but he went the distance. Epic World Series in terms of the back and forth of the two great teams. 1968 was the year of the pitcher. That was the year Gibson had the 1.12 ERA for the season, which you would think will never be broken. Um, and somehow I think he lost 9 games that year. Which tells you all you need to know about how much offense there was in the league that year. Um, so on that side, epic World Series, some great names in there: Norm Cash, Willie Horton, Al Kaline on the Jim Northrup on the Tigers side. Not to mention Denny McLain and Mickey Lolich as the great pitching that they had, and the Cardinals obviously had a great team in the '60s. You and I were discussing this not long ago. Maybe I was talking with another friend of mine that if you go back to like the 1920s, I don't think the Cardinals ever had more than 2 losing seasons in a row. It's unbelievable. It's almost 100 years before that's a really well run organization. They just don't have lots of losing seasons. They always seem to be competitive.
No, and you
Uh,
don't think of them as spending tons of cash and getting the huge name free agents. They get fine free agents, but you don't
yeah,
think of them getting the 5 years, $140 million kind of a guy.
yeah. So that was awesome, and the '60s Cardinals were a great team. Uh, and the '70s Cardinals weren't quite as good, but the '80s the Cardinals were one of the better teams in the '80s. Um, and they continued it through the '90s and became great again in the late '90s and continue it to this day with various forms. So hats off to them. Um, you know, honestly though, the '85 ALCS, I looked at this game and I'm not quite sure why it's in the bracket. Uh, 6-2 Royals. I guess, if you look at it, they were down 4-1 or 3-1. It'd be tough if they're down 4-1.
Yes, that would be a tough comeback. And I think that had something to do with it. The comeback.
They did come way back, and the Blue Jays were a good team that went. Dave Steve, we talked about Jimmy Key, was a great young pitcher for them, who had an epic cameo in that great ESPN ad. Um, Jimmy Key, come on! Then he goes to the test signal. So, two good teams, and the Royals would go on to win the World Series that year, for the last time until 2015. Also a great team there. I mean, Lee Brandt and Quisenberry and George Brett. So for a series,
too, right?
The game itself was not a great game, though. The Royals were 6-2. They jumped out to the early lead 2-1 after 5, put up 4 in the 6th to seal it, and the Jays got 1 run to in the bottom of the 9th to, I don't know, just make it interesting, whatever.
So much like you did with the bracket of joy, you're questioning the selection committee here a little.
I guess I am. Yes,
I will let them know. They will be informed. So I take it you're going with the World Series here.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll give them the win. They were right on the edge with 49 points, but you knock them all the way up to 71 and what looks like a comfortable win. So the World Series takes it for the second time tonight, beating the League Championship Series. We have 2 matchups to go, and then we will have a draw set of the 32 exciting Game 7s. We should have brackets available if you want to get a copy when they're set. Just email us at flickboz, that's all one word, flickboz@gmail.com. Or you're probably already on the YouTube site. I'll put a link to the email there. Just let us know. And before we even start these last 2 matchups, I'd like to thank our emailers. I'll say were not a ton of them, but there were some. So your vote counts. If you want to email what you think about these series and the brackets, let us know. And again, our expert panel of Paul Ingray, Tim Grasso, Kevin Hall, Eric Martin, a cast of thousands helping us out with these matchups, and will help us out with the draw of 32. But we come to our 7th matchup tonight, and Dave, I'll tell you going in, you can talk about these 2 games, but your vote is not going to make the difference. This one's already been decided, but I will tell you it's the 2008 LCS on the American League side, with the Rays beating the Red Sox by a score of 3-1. And it's the 79 World Series with the Pirates defeating the Orioles by a score of 4-1. Take it away.
All right. So, on the one hand, the Rays that year in 08 reminded me a little bit of the 69 Mets, because they had been awful for their entire existence until that year. So got to factor that in a little bit. That was pretty cool to see them pull together and make a run. Unfortunately, they didn't end up winning the World Series, losing to the Phillies in the next round. But that was such an epic run, and they had been such an epically bad team for so many years. And yet, you put it together, and they did have a great team. Matt Garza was the winning pitcher as the starter, and David Price, who would obviously go on to join the Red Sox not long after that, got the save and relief.
Yeah, that was interesting to see that Price got the save.
Yeah. And they beat John Lester, who was the starting pitcher for the Red Sox. So unfortunately, the game itself was, again, not a lot of drama. The Red Sox got 1 in the first, and that was all they got off of the Rays pitching that day. The Rays ended up, the one thing I noticed is the Rays used 5 pitchers in the 8th inning, which always just drove me crazy. as I was looking. You watch these games, you have 5 pitchers to get 3 outs, but it worked. And Joe Madden, the genius, got him through but that's why you get a 3.5 hour game, which is what it was, for a 3-1 9 inning game, 8.5 inning game, 3.5 hours.
Met great Chad Bradford making an appearance too.
Chad Bradford, one of my favorite relievers, the guy that used to scrape his knuckles on the ground when he pitched. Wonderful guy to watch. He did not record an out in that appearance. But the Rays in that game, they had Carlos Pena, Melvin Upton Jr., Evan Longoria, Carl Crawford. A lot of these guys, Rocco Baldelli, ended up going to places like Boston at some point in their career. And Carlos Pena, of course, was famous or infamous from his appearance in Moneyball, in the movie and the book. So great drama there as far as the Rays are concerned. The Red Sox, not a lot of drama. They'd already won a couple World Series and broken their curse. And then the We Are Family Pirates, right? 79. This was an epic team and a great run for Pittsburgh. This was the last time. It took them a little while to come back from this. I guess they were still pretty good in the 80s, but they certainly were a team that benefited from a franchise, I should say, that benefited from the collusion that had been going on for years in baseball. But look at the team that the Pirates had there: Dave Parker, Bill Robinson, Willie Stargell, Bill Madlock, and the great pitching with Kent Colvey and Candelaria, and on and on. So great team there, and the Orioles have been great too, really from '69 through the mid '80s, and after their Orioles World Series in '83, they started to tail off, and then had that one year, was it '88 or '89, when they lost the first 20 or so games of the season. So they did tail off and haven't really been. They had a pretty good team in the '90s for a while, but never really got back to that level of greatness where they won a few World Series in that time. I think you look at the great names in that World Series. Again, not a lot of drama in the game. The Orioles got the first run in the bottom of the third. Stargell gets the big hit in the sixth. I believe it was his 5th home run. I couldn't find out if it was his 5th home run of the postseason or his 5th home run of the World Series. Either way, he's your World Series MVP, and a huge performance by him and by the We Are Family Pirates. I'm going to go with them as your winners here.
Well, you are not alone in this selecting that series, and with your 22 points, that pushes the Pirates to a 93-7 win. I tried to make these matchups fairly even, and a lot of them were even, but this one was not. To the panel and to the voters, the popularity of the 79 Pirates, as you mentioned, the We Are Family team, more than enough to defeat the Rays and their win over the Red Sox.
I'm a little surprised it's that lopsided, because that was an exciting ALCS, and it was an exciting team. I certainly glommed onto that Rays team, and I still kind of root for the Rays as one of the big underdogs in all of sports. A team that regularly has a third to a quarter of the payroll of the teams that they play against regularly in the Yankees and Red Sox. So it's fun to see them win 90 games a year these days.
I mentioned Chad Bradford because I believe he made an appearance in that Game 7 mentioned earlier, the Mets losing to the Cardinals. He wasn't key in the decision or really the outcome, but I think he was in that Game 7. So odd to see Chad Bradford in 2 of these games. But we will move it on to our last matchup of the night, and sometime during next week, we will start to dig into the 32 Game 7s that are left. And we do thank you, those who have are listening to us on YouTube, thanks a lot for that. Participate in the brackets. Email, please. Show us that you're out there. But our eighth and final matchup of the night has the league championship series 1 year following an earlier one we talked about tonight, but this one is '04, and that's when the Red Sox got some bit of revenge, beating the Yankees by a score of 10-3 in Game 7, and that'll take on the 2014 Game 7 of the World Series drama as the Giants beat the Royals 3-2.
Interesting. All right. So the World Series that year, Game 7, the Giants had finally broken through a couple years before as their first World Series win in San Francisco since they moved there in '58. So this was not a big drama from that standpoint. They had already won I think they had already won twice at that point. It was in 10 and 12, right? It was every even year. They got their first 2 runs on sac flies. The Royals tied it up with a double and a sac fly.
All early in the game.
All early in the game. That was by the end of the second. The Giants get 2 in the top of the fourth.
1 in the fourth.
Sorry, 1 in the fourth. Thank you. And on Kung Fu Panda coming around. And that was pretty much the game. So not a lot of drama there, I think, with the game more or less over in the fourth inning. And on the other side, the Red Sox obviously 10-3 in Game 7. That's not the drama.
No.
The drama in that game, in that series was the series itself. The Yankees up 3-0 on the heels of the '03 season that we just talked about earlier, and Who's Your Daddy, and the chants were going all series long. And Game 4, and it's Dave Roberts steals the base, starts the rally off Mariano, and off they went. And I say it like it was that easy. So Game 4, the Red Sox win 6-4 in 12. Game 5, they win 5-4 in 14. Game 6, they win 4-2. Kurt Schilling over John Lieber. And then Game 7 is the romp with Kevin Brown getting roughed up. And that is a name that does not bring ever any smiles to the faces of any Yankees fans. As perhaps one of the most overrated pitchers in baseball history, they would allege. Although, if you look it up statistically, he's one of the better pitchers ever to pitch to have no chance to make it to the Hall of Fame. But he's certainly
that's a lot of qualifiers. I'll have to think about that.
He's certainly in all of the very good. He was a very good pitcher for quite a few years, just not for the Yankees. So, I mean, I think you have to go with the Red Sox. That was just such an amazing series. That was the year they broke the curse, and that was Schilling, right, with the blood. Was that the year he had the bloody sock?
Bloody sock.
Yeah. So that was such an amazing series, an amazing team, amazing comeback, and it all started with that strange stolen base in Game 4 that started the first and only comeback in baseball history from a 3-0 deficit. So definitely going to pick the Red Sox to win that matchup.
Yeah, and you look at this, 10-3, there was no drama there. It was 8-3 in the seventh. Oh no. I'm sure Red Sox fans were starting to get worried even when it was 8-3. They saw Pedro was in the game at that point and struggling. They had to get him out of there. Would they get him out of there in time? And they did. It looks a lot more comfortable than it was, but as you mentioned, Derek Lowe got the win. Kevin Brown got the loss, and I told our panel and our email, you can base these decisions on anything you want, and I think in some cases just fans of a team or haters of a team. But here, the drama of the series, I think wins it. That Giants Royals game, you think, oh, game 7, a 1-run game, that's got to win. No, it doesn't have to win. I didn't. I thought it could go either way here, but having the Red Sox advance, I think that's fine. And your vote, that game was winning, but your vote clinches it, and the Red Sox defeating the Yankees in 2004 will advance by a 67-33 count, if my math is correct.
I'm sure it is.
I'm pretty sure it is. That's what I worry about the least. Having the technology work, that I worry about. Having the music ready to go when the show ends, that I really have doubts about. We may have the same going out music as we had coming in, but oh no, I got another one ready, I think. I do.
By the way,
I'm there.
Madison Bumgarner. In Game 7 of that Giants Royals series, Madison Bumgarner started to really cement his legacy. 5 innings in relief for the save, 2 hits, 4 strikeouts. Not a bad appearance there.
No, not at all. And we do thank you very much for listening to these. On the night, it turned out that 5 of the league championship series won. 3 World Series move on. That means baseball will be represented by 11 World Series Game 7s and 5 League Championship Series Game 7s. And we'll mix in some hockey Game 7s and some NBA Game 7s when we do our next show, which hopefully will be next week sometime. But we do appreciate you listening. If this was your first time listening, we have 3 other shows on the YouTube site. So check them out, where we do a bracket of pain, a bracket of joy, and our 3rd episode was a preview of the NFL draft. But now that that's happened and the schedule release, you can go back and see how accurate or inaccurate we were. But stay safe, everybody. Stay healthy, and we will join you again on the Flick and the Bozman podcast. Thanks a lot.